Good evening, on this very chilly evening. Welcome to the Development Management Committee. I'm Councillor Kieran Bowker, the Chair of the Committee. Before we start the meeting, I need to make the public attending aware of the following. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm goes off, please make your way out of the nearest emergency exit and gather at the front of Runnymede Hall. Meetings of the committee are webcast and broadcast on the internet. If you're seated in the public gallery area, it's possible that your image may become part of this broadcast. And lastly, may I ask all present to switch mobile phones to silent? Thank you. May I ask the Development Management Committee members present who are seated in the chamber in the row in front of me to introduce themselves, stating your name only, starting on my left.
Councillor Alan Acott.
Councillor Carol Sage.
Councillor Gareth Howlett.
Good evening all, Councillor Rob Lillis.
Good evening all, Councillor Russ Savage.
Councillor Jackie Thornton.
And Councillor Tom Skip.
May I ask the officers present to introduce themselves, again starting on my left.
Keith Zammit, Planning Officer.
Stephen Garner, the Assistant Director for Development Services.
Cheryl Salmon, and I'm the Committee Officer.
Good evening, David Bland, Legal Advisor to the Committee.
Finally, may I ask any other members present to introduce themselves?
Councillor Andrew Thornton.
Councillor Beverley Egan.
Councillor Clive Walder, Member of St George's Ward.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Gregg.
Thank you. Item 2 is members' interests. Are there any members' interests? Item 3 is minutes. Are the minutes for the Development Management Committee meetings held on the 5th and 13th of December 2023 agreed? Item 5 is deposited plans. Item 1 is 49 Church Road, Thundersley, Benfleet. I'll now hand over to the Planning Officer to present this item.
Thank you. Good evening. Right. Before we kick off, in case I forget, we had a new version of the National Planning Policy Framework was published after this report was written and just before Christmas. The paragraphs that are relevant to consideration of this item haven't changed. So in case any of you had heard about a new edition of the National Planning Policy Framework, it's not pertinent to consideration of this case. Well, the framework is pertinent, but the changes aren't. So, right, 49 Church Road. If it looks familiar, that's because it is. It was at committee last February, and planning permission was granted for the extension of the existing semi-detached house and its conversion into 3 flats. Move on. There it is on the corner of Seymour Avenue with its garage at the rear, and it's also got a bit of frontage parking. That's a view of the front, some more of the side, then the back of the existing house with its gates. That's actually the neighbour's garage. So, okay, what's the difference between what the council's approved and what we're now looking at? So the planning permission's there for 3 flats. The applicant's now putting a revised scheme in for 4 flats. Downstairs footprint is pretty much as it was. So I've got the approved on the left and the current one on the right, just try and do a side by side. Going up to the first floor, this is where it's a bit different, because there's the first floor at the back, it comes out further now. So previously there was like a balcony and just a small rear projection, because it was just 1 flat upstairs. Now it's 2 flats upstairs, so that's where the extra flat is going in. Appearance-wise, front is more or less unchanged. The side, you can see, as approved, it had a staircase going down. The upstairs wasn't a very big extension out the back. The current one, it's a bigger first floor extension at the back, and there's no staircase. And then looking at the rear elevation, which is this, as approved, it was mostly ground floor extending to the rear with just that little bit of the first floor. This proposal has a more substantial first floor extension. But notwithstanding that it's bigger, planning officers don't feel it's like overbearing necessarily to anybody living around. The main perhaps plan we look at, just to show the differences, this is the site layout. Now, I appreciate one's coloured, one's black and white, but you can see how we approved 4 parking spaces last time, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was like 1 per flat and an extra one, if you like. The current scheme is now proposing 5 off-street parking spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the agent for the application, I believe, has sent all Development Management Committee members an email today explaining that really it's only like 1 extra parking space here is the difference, and it's only a little bit of extra hard surfacing. And the existing house that's there could do more hard standing anyway as permitted development without having to come to us for permission. And so that's a reason to overturn the officer's recommendation of refusal. But I would say that that isn't justification to overturn the recommendation and approve it, because although, yes, existing houses that are in the area, they can do driveways and things without having to apply for permission to the council. Where we do have control over this kind of thing in schemes for flats, we would try to set the bar a bit higher, try to keep things looking a bit more attractive. They've pointed to the landscaping, which is, as I think the agent is going to be speaking, so they'll probably tell you that there's landscaping sort of around the cars. I would suggest that won't really soften the impact of the hard standing in the cars a great deal, because sort of like when you've got a car here, it's going to hide the bushes, and as well as that, the people who park there, they're going to start moaning about their cars getting scratched and things, and they're going to want the bushes taken out. So whilst it does look sort of quite pretty, I'm not really convinced that that's necessarily what it would be like long term. I think that's probably all the differences. So I think that's all from me for now. So thank you.
Thank you, Keith. We have 3 public speakers tonight. Mr. Fort will speak in objection, Mr. Ford will speak in support, and Councillor Walter will speak as Ward Councillor. Mr. Fort, would you like to take to the lectern? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So, I'd just like to start off by saying that I'm speaking in opposition to this application, one, because of the known dangerous parking and traffic situations on this corner. I mean, what the drawings don't highlight, obviously, there is how bad the parking situation is already. I mean, just this Christmas, a resident who wishes to remain anonymous unfortunately had to have an ambulance called out, and there was nowhere to park. There's nowhere for it. It had to park on someone's driveway. So to add more parking, because it won't just be the people who live there. It won't be just 5 cars there. It'll be more like 10 who will be parking along there, making that junction even more dangerous, especially with the additional complexities of the multiple driveways on such a narrow corner. I'm very concerned about the safety of this application to the existing junction. I don't think we should be supporting applications which create more parking or traffic issues where we can prevent it. Likewise, The building itself is significantly bigger than it currently is, and even the previous application, which was regrettably approved. It causes significant overlooking on the neighbouring properties. It's overbearing, and it's not very much in the street scene. In fact, we have a precedent before the previous application of refusing and won at appeal to prevent bigger developments on its very site. So it's very disappointing that whilst very supportive of the refusal, disappointed that these other considerations are not being taken into consideration. And as well, furthermore, the application, it provides, 4 more houses, but we're a borough which has about 500 odd council housing waiting list and a housing target of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 houses. This 4 houses which are not part of any social housing scheme is a drop in the ocean. I think, considering all the matters combined together, I think the benefits are minimal or questionable at best, and the harms are significant. It's causing significant overlooking and stress to the neighbouring properties who will be significantly harmed by this development, as well as the already known parking and traffic issues on this dangerous, busy junction. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford, would you like to make your statement, please? Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. The principle of this development has been established by a predecessor plan permission pertaining to a 3-flat development. This application seeks the addition of a single 1-bed flat. All planning policies were considered in the formulation of the proposal, and all applicable internal and external development standards are duly met. The proposed reason for refusal relates to the addition of a single car parking space over and above the previous plan permission. Officers consider that this renders the proposal unacceptable. I respectfully disagree. The local highway authority were consulted during the application process and have raised no objection to the traffic movements associated with a single additional car, nor the associated addition of a drop curb. The additional space is therefore technically sound from a highway safety perspective. The applicant could hard stand this area of the site at any time utilising household development rights afforded to existing dwelling, and they can park as many cars as they see fit at the property in its current use as single dwelling. It is not uncommon for households to have multiple cars these days. In addition, a generous area of the site frontage of Seymour Avenue is proposed to be landscaped, providing visual relief between the 2 proposed parking areas. On the basis of the material planning considerations I've set out, I commend the proposal to you and hope that you feel able to support the planning application this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Councillor Walter, would you like to speak in your role as ward councillor? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We've got an extremely dangerous junction on this road. Even on the day of the last planning application, when it was passed, there was a lady had to be cut out of a car on that very road. So, you know, whatever the planning authorities say about the highways, they are not here on the spot watching all these various things that are going on. Parking. Young couples renting or buying generally have 2 cars and 2 incomes, ready to sort of move up in the world. So, you know, we can probably look to 2 cars per flat. Cramped. It's overlooking adjoining premises. All of these points have all been adequately made already last year and again this evening by Mr. Fort. Sewage. Several properties on Church Road have a history of toilets backing up and flooding with raw sewage. Nobody seems to have attempted to do anything about that over the years, and this is only adding to it. The borough has been allowing flats to be built in a disproportionate manner for many years, and this dangerous and putting another one on this dangerous and cramped junction isn't acceptable in my opinion. It looks out of property, looks out of place with adjoining surrounding properties like a carbuncle. I recommend that this is turned down and refused. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I move the recommendation, do members have any questions for the planning officer about the planning application? Please note this is the members' opportunity to seek clarification from the planning officer on any matters they are unclear of regarding the application. Members should refrain from making statements about their views. They should be expressed in the debate section of the meeting. Are there any questions? Councillor Thornton.
You've recommended the refusal on the landscaping and the visual aspect. Can you explain the amenity? Because obviously we've included another flat somewhere. So have they lost amenity space outside, and is that still within standard? And have they lost space within the size of the flats, please? Thank you.
The garden areas at the rear are in accordance with design guidance. So unusually for flats, they've each got their own garden. 1, 2, 3, and then that one like wraps round. So you don't often get your own outside space with flats. So in terms of that aspect of it's quite positive. Size of the flats, yes, is the answer to would any of them be smaller? Because you had if I go to the first floor, it was only like one flat upstairs last time, and they're getting 2 upstairs now. So yeah, I mean, it's still in accordance with space standards. So we wouldn't suggest it be refused for that reason.
Councillor Savage.
Keith, would you be kind enough to take us back to the photograph, the aerial photograph of the property, please? So am I right in thinking that the fifth spot, the additional space, will be actually a drop curb onto the chevrons for the zebra crossing?
Yeah, so it would be here. The existing access I'll just jump over to the photo. The existing access that is here would be widened. To me, it doesn't look like there's chevrons there. I can only see yellow lines.
Yes, it's the aerial one that I was looking at.
Yeah, go to the next photo.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. The chevrons do appear to be about level with the wall. Just go back to the aerial again. Yeah, I mean, there it does look like they're about halfway across that grass. But yeah, it's a fair point. But the Highway Authority have said, from a highway safety aspect, there's no reason to object. So yeah, we would defer to them on such matters.
Councillor Jackie Thompson.
Thank you. I'm totally in agreement with what you've said in the report and the need to refuse it. Can you tell me, this appears quite it's not one I'm aware of before. Can you tell me, have we got evidence where we've used this reason for refusal successfully, and how confident you are that it's not susceptible to losing an appeal?
Well, appeals are the most unpredictable part of planning. I suppose in October we had the Warren and Tanglewood on Hall Crescent, where we were talking about this issue of frontage parking, and I said how we'd been back to the applicant and we'd persuaded them to shift some of the parking from the site frontage to parking stackers at the back, and I was able to use my powers of persuasion there, so I would feel confident to defend it at an appeal if that was the way this went. I'll put my name to my recommendation. Yeah.
Councillor Howlett.
Yeah, Councillor Thornton's just asked the same question that I was going to ask.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Just the one question for me, and it came from the gentleman who spoke in favour of the application. He talked in terms, Keith, of a generous amount of landscaping. I think I overlooked that. Can you just show me on one of the diagrams or pictures where that would be? The generous amount, that is. Thank you.
So what George Ford said was there's a lot of landscaping going along the frontage to Seymour Avenue. between the two areas of parking. I suppose my observations on that would be that this here is one of the flat's gardens, so you're naturally going to want some sort of fence along that bit for privacy, so that would kind of negate the benefit of that bit of landscaping. It would just be this bit you'd perhaps see, but in any event, it's the street scene in Church Road that I'm more getting at, because you'd have the parking along the frontage there with not much relief. So going along the street at the side wasn't really where my concern was anyway.
Councillor Howlett.
In the report, it points out that there's no storage in any of the flats. Is there going to be conditions put in place to make sure that there is storage inside?
Well, the application's recommended for refusal. If you wanted to overturn that recommendation and approve the scheme, yes, you could put a condition on saying that we'd like an alternative floor layout with better storage provision for the flats, if you wanted to. As the previous approval, I believe, was subject to such a condition.
Are there any more questions? The Planning Officer's recommendation is that planning permission be refused for the reasons set out in the report. For the purposes of debate, I move the recommendation. Please note that members should only speak once during the debate section of the meeting. Who would like to speak first? Councillor Savage.
I've got serious concerns about that fifth parking space, and the reason being, if you look at incidents that we've had around zebra crossings, and one in particular that I can think of is on Benfleet High Road, where cars are either turning into the back of the flats by the co-op, obscuring the visual view through that junction. We've had people nearly on that crossing. I can see exactly the same thing happening there. You know, that is a fast bit of road. I'm not suggesting for a minute that Seymour is any more dangerous than any other junction, but that road is a quick bit of road. They come off of that particular bend up towards Seymour, and you can get a fair lick of speed up there. And if there's cars turning in and out of that junction on top of turning into Seymour or coming out of Seymour, I can see that being a catastrophe waiting to happen. So that's my opinion. And for that reason alone, I agree with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Skip.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Like the previous speaker, I do fully support the officer's recommendation for refusal on this site. I still believe that the deficiency of one parking space is grounds for refusal, but I'm quite happy to go along with your recommendation anyway for refusal on the items you've mentioned. Mr. Ford pointed out that the potential for much more off-street parking here is very, very likely, you know, and even though it's within close vicinity of public transport, I still think that is a consideration we need to take into account on this very busy junction. In fact, Mr. Ford, did agree that there will be more parking here, so it's not uncommon to generate more parking. So I think, for both of those points, I think this is a good reason for refusal. So I'm happy to support your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak? Members, the motion before you is for refusal. May I have a show of hands, please? Those for the motion.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's unanimous. The motion is carried and the application is refused. That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you very much for attending and have a safe journey home. Thank you.